Welcome to Pop Culture Roulette for all your pop culture needs. We're America's spookiest podcast.
Ooh.
All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm Nicholas. I'm joined by a guy who believes we are in a total recall style simulation, and he's just eagerly awaiting Arnold Schwarzenegger to wake him up, telling him to get to Mars. Jeremy.
True.
And we're also joined by a guy who's just eagerly awaiting to wake up in Arnold Schwarzenegger's arms, Justin.
I mean, someone's got to save us from this harsh reality.
All right, everybody. So we are, 3 days into our Halloween marathon?
Oh, yeah. We are 3 days in.
This is our so
going strong.
Yeah, hopefully at this point we are going strong. We haven't, if we miss early, that's going to be bad.
Yeah,
bad precedent. So hopefully here in a couple weeks you'll be joining us for day 30, 31 of everything, and helping us round out this fun marathon. Who Jeremy swears we won't do it again, but he also said that last year. So
this time for real.
He has hired me to talk some common sense into him. If he starts bringing it up again next year, I am supposed to talk him off the ledge.
All right, because I'll talk him into it. I'm just if he says let's do it, I'm going to be like, yeah, let's do it.
Well, whoever can come here first in around May, that's when my brain will probably start thinking about it. Next May is when the ideas form.
We'll send Justin back to Hawaii in May. All right. Well, so today we're starting off our spooky season by talking about the subject of today's episode, which I on a lot of other podcasts, they always give this giant big intro, but it literally says it in the title. We're like, oh, we're going to do this interview with this. And then it goes on for like 20 minutes about this special. And then finally says the name. And you're like, yeah, but like it's already in the title. Like it's right there.
Yeah.
So you already know what we're going to talk about. But today we're going to talk about somebody who's been gender bended. He's been a hero. He's been a villain. He's a horror icon.
Oh,
a comedy legend.
Wow.
Elements of this story have been stolen heavily for Weird Science, Reanimator, you name it, they've been done. He's a kids movie star. He has met Abbott and Costello, Jesse James, the Scooby-Doo gang. We are talking about Frankenstein's monster.
Woo!
I didn't know how to follow that up.
That's a better intro for a fictional character than we will ever get, I think, at the beginning of Pop Culture Roulette.
Oh, yeah, because I'm just going to do whatever I can to make fun of you guys.
But a legend like Frankenstein's monster deserves so much more.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Absolutely. All right. So Frankenstein's monster comes from Frankenstein, subtitle, or the modern Prometheus. It was published on January 1st, 1818. Written by Mary Shelley. She began writing it around the age of 18 and finished it when she was 20.
Oh, wow.
Which, let's think about that for a second.
Yeah, what have we accomplished in our lives?
Right. I mean, now granted, you're setting yourself a high bar out the gate. Like, bam. Like, your first thing is that. Like 1818, we are now just over 200 years later. And we are still talking about Frankenstein's monster, or Frankenstein himself, and all of the elements of that. There have been hundreds, if not thousands, of movies and TV shows based off of some element of this story. And she did it when she was 18. Like,
simpler times back then, I guess.
Well, people died early, so she was like, I gotta hurry.
Oh, that is true. I mean,
Yeah, she was middle aged, I guess, at
Right.
that
You know, when
point.
she was, I guess, 18 then was like, 45 now. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta think of inflation on those numbers.
Right. Right.
but it's still impressive nonetheless. It's impressive that an 18 to 20-year-old could write the story that she wrote. I mean, just thinking about like the time era of 1816 to 1818. Um, I mean, it's mind blowing when you think about like just what's happened in the world in the last 200 years that she was able to write something that's still, usable today and not just like antiquated. Like you can very easily modernize it, be like, yeah, look, it still works. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If only she could see it now.
I wonder what she would say, quite honestly. Like,
Yeah. Well, it just
Like-
so happens we have a Ouija board with us, so we're going to contact Mary Shelley.
Oh,
I mean, if she watched the monsters, where Herman Monster, a obvious ripoff of the Frankenstein, like, would she be like, this is great, like this is where I saw, this is an awesome use of my character, or would she be like, the fuck are you people doing?
Yeah. You ruined my art.
I think it depends on how big the royalty check is.
That is true, and I'm guessing much like most of our topics from last year, every bit of Frankenstein's monster is public domain.
Um,
I'm sure that like the Universal monster version of him is probably still copyrighted, but that doesn't stop me from making my own version as long as I don't make him look exactly or too close to Universal's Frankenstein monster. Which brings us to the next point. Now, it has just become like commonplace that people just call that monster Frankenstein.
Right.
But
yeah.
but at no point in the book has he ever been given a name. He is always referred to as it or he or monster or there's a whole list of things. So
I know how he feels.
yeah.
Oh,
So that's so it's interesting. But I mean it's one of those like I guess kind of like how Dracula's kind of become a catch-all for vampire, like
Right. Yeah.
where Dracula is a very singular vampire, vampires as a whole, but or Band-Aid refers to all plastic or whatever bandages,
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, has
So-
it gotten to the point yet with Frankenstein where if you hear someone say it, you're just like, whatever. You're not even gonna like. You pretty much know that they probably know. It's just like
Right.
I'm just gonna say this because it is what it is.
Yeah, it's just easier.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be that guy, that actually what you're referring to is Frankenstein's monster. He's never been officially given a name.
It's a big hit at the Halloween party if you start to do that. Go up to all the people dressed as Frankenstein's. Did you know?
No, I'm Frankenstein. No, you're not. You're Frankenstein's monster.
Get out.
guess who's not getting invited back next year?
All right. So the first film that anybody has reference to is a silent film from 1910, just simply titled Frankenstein. It was written and directed by J. Searle Dooley. Daly? I can't read my own handwriting. It was considered lost until sometime in 1980 when a private collector found it. And he apparently had bought it sometime in the 50s and didn't realize how important it was or how valuable it was because he just was like, oh, well, I just have this thing. What do you mean nobody has a copy of it?
Wow. That's crazy.
Which makes me wonder, like, how many lost films are like that? Like they're just in a private vault somewhere or in a back room, because I mean, well, every couple of years, I mean, like with Doctor Who, Like there's all these lost episodes, and every so often they'll be like, "Yeah, we found a storage set at a BBC office somewhere in Mumbai. We actually found like 20 copies of these episodes we thought were lost."
That's nuts. we,
You
we should,
imagine that? You just find a box like that. Like,
right?
oh, what's this box in my shed? Oh, I forgot I had these.
Oops. We should do a whole episode on lost media sometime. That'd be fun.
We should. I mean, I feel like we might have done it in the old days, but let's redo it where,
All right.
we're better at it now than we were then.
Yeah. Slightly.
Well, we like to pretend we're better at it.
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
the
a
first-
wicked look for this Frankenstein, by the way, in this 1910 adaptation.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll get to that here in a second
Okay.
because right. All right. Actually, we're talking about that right now. The first sound film, the first movie that had sound to it, was the 1931 Universal Pictures Frankenstein, directed by James Whale, where Boris Karloff played Frankenstein's monster. That's that classic, square head, greenish skin, stitches, scars all over the place, the bolts in the neck. The image of Frankenstein that everybody has now was given to us from 1931.
Oh yeah.
That's the classic. That's what everybody associates with the monster. Where if you read the book, and I've never actually read the book, I should probably read it one of these days. If you read that book, that version from 1910 or the Kenneth Branagh 1993, 1994 version, with when Robert De Niro played the monster, is slightly more accurate.
Oh really?
Like, yeah, because it's not like because they were like Universal or James Whale had an image, and like he didn't really follow the story. I mean, he had the beats, but kind of like most stuff. Like it's like yeah, we got it. We know what you. Yeah. Because I guess in the book they never directly say that Frankenstein used electricity or lightning to bring his creation to life. He just used science.
Okay, I gotcha.
Okay.
Interesting.
So it was just a matter of like, I think movies and TV have been like, well, this is more fun or makes things look cooler.
Sure.
Or you got to have a way to like you've stitched this character together. How are you going to bring him back to life? You're not just going to use defibrillator paddles. You're gonna shock him with light. Or back in 1931, I don't even know if defibrillator paddles existed.
Right.
I didn't do a research on that because that's not what this topic is. So, maybe then like they were just like, well, if you get struck by lightning, you come back to life, right?
Yeah.
Like
Makes sense.
If you're alive, it kills you. If you're dead, it brings you back to life.
Obviously, yeah.
I don't see any flaws with that argument.
Well, I think I definitely would agree with the studio here. I like the 1931 look much better. I feel like he actually kind of looks a little dopey in the 1910 version.
Yeah, I mean, has either of you seen the Kenneth Branagh 1993, 1994 Frankenstein movie?
Mm-mm.
The one with De Niro?
Yeah, the one with De Niro where De Niro plays the monster.
I've never seen it all the way through.
I saw it back then. I don't know if I've seen it since. I honestly kind of forgot that it existed until I started doing research, and I was like, "Oh yeah, that was pretty good. I did like that. I need to rewatch that." But then I didn't bother to look up to see if it was anywhere.
Oh, that's interesting. That's a unique look.
The De Niro look.
Yeah. So he's just basically like a dude, but some patched together parts of his face.
Right. Yeah. Because I guess that part is pretty accurate to the book that he, that the doctor took, various different corpses and kind of stitched parts back together. And then, through some obscure reference to science, brought him back to life. And,
sure,
because he was looking for like immortality, I think. But what's really interesting though, when I was doing the research and I found this out, the first stage production was in London in 1823. So barely like, it was published in 1818. So 5 years after the book was published, like it had gotten so popular that people were like, let's put it on as a play.
That's amazing.
Because obviously they didn't have movies back then, which kind of makes me wonder, like how many other like old famous books from that time period were like because I guess plays would have been the version of, because we don't really, I mean, we have plays, but they don't necessarily translate the way that we do anymore. Now we're like, we put a book and we make a movie out of it.
Right.
So I guess back then it was like, we put out a book, we make a play out of it.
Right. How many people were sitting around going like, the play version sucks. I can't believe they did it again.
The book was better. I guarantee you they were basement dwelling nerds back in 1823. Living in their parents' basement, going to whatever version of comic book stores existed back then. Did you go to that play at the Barrister House last night? Oh, the book was so much better. But that play was called Presumption, subtitle, or the Fate of Frankenstein. I guess Mary Shelley herself actually caught at least one performance of it. It did not say what her opinion of it was, but
yeah, I was just thinking that she died in 1851.
Yeah, so I mean, she definitely saw her creation go on to be very famous and very popular. I mean, it was not a super big hit with the critics, because much like sci-fi now, like sci-fi has a very loyal, very dedicated fan base, and we as the sci-fi nerds love our sci-fi, but we know that the critics don't for whatever reason.
Yeah.
So
sci-fi and superheroes.
Sci-fi and so much like that, apparently that has never changed. If you're a professional critic, you have to shit on things that, the common man likes. But I guess it was an immediate hit with the common folk. So much so that they were making big stage productions of it 5 years later. I was looking for any sort of reference to when Frankenstein's monster started crossing over vampires, because we've gotten Van Helsing, that movie with Hugh Jackman. I was about to say about 4 or 5 years ago, but that was probably actually 15, 20 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all sorts of references to Frankenstein and Dracula meeting up or teaming up or fighting against each other, but the earliest reference I could find was a burlesque musical from 1887 called Frankenstein or the Vampire's Victim. To which I thought, what a weird concept. A burlesque musical about Frankenstein meeting up with a vampire.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, a burlesque musical is pretty weird to begin with.
Mm-hmm. But then to add monsters into the mix.
Yeah. So was it a woman Frankenstein? I don't know. I mean, because when I think burlesque, there's a certain image that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Somebody like Dita Von Teese,
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of like they don't go all the way. It's not like a strip show, so like you're not going to like the Peeler Bar, for our Canadian fans. So you're not getting full nude. It's more of the tease, kind of the
Frankenstein dancing with the big fan of feathers.
Right. Yeah. It just seems
slowly unscrolling a bolt.
Unfortunately for because it was 1887, there's not a lot of. I mean, there wasn't. I don't even know if cameras existed in 1887. I don't know. I think maybe they did, but there wasn't a lot of written down media other than like the fact that it existed. So,
yeah.
But it seems like, I mean, considering from 1818 to 1887, it seems like relatively short period of time, they were like, hey, these monsters should like team up. And we've got the werewolf series coming in a couple weeks, to drop a little hint for what we're doing. I'll have to do some research into how soon into the whole mythos of vampires and Frankenstein's monster did werewolves start crossing over with them? Because I know werewolves are more of a, because like vampires, they have more of a folk history and more of a, an organic, like, oh, this happens in real life. Well, Frankenstein's monster, we can definitively say, was created in 1880.
Right.
We know who created it, we know who wrote it, and the fact that, like, I mean, I think it should be noted, a woman created Frankenstein's monster just over 200 years ago. So I think that's something very important. Frankenstein's monster also has been a Marvel character off and on since 1953. He's had his own series. He's had his own series just called Frankenstein's Monster.
Okay.
Or he has appeared. He has fought with or against the Avengers, Spider-Man, Iron Man. He was in Tomb of Dracula. He joined the Howling Commandos for a little while. He teamed up with Howard the Duck, Nighthawk, and She-Hulk to take down a rampaging Man-Thing in Fear itself a couple years ago. So It's possible that we might see Frankenstein's monster show up in the MCU.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I'm sure that's a Disney Plus show, but
if they were smart, that's what they got to do. Does he speak in the comics, or does he just?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he. I mean, I think there's been a progression of the bum, kind of like the progression of the character just from the to, because even in the book, like he's kind of poetic and has a sense of, not necessarily I don't even know if he has a sense of right or wrong, but he has kind of a a poetic mind. He speaks, and so at the beginning of the thing, he's just fire bad. By the end, like as he kind of comes back to life. All right. So, what is your top 3 Frankenstein monster in pop culture?
Okay. How do we want to do this? Back and forth, or all at once?
Yes, we'll just all speak at once. It's
all right. We'll say 1, 2, 3, and we'll all just start rambling over each other.
I meant like go down the list all at once, or like our picks back and forth.
I guess we can just, Jeremy, why don't you kick us off and give us your top 3?
All right. So first one is Frankenstein wastes a minute of our time from Conan O'Brien. It was a reoccurring little quick segment where I don't know the dude's name, but someone that worked on the show would come out dressed as Frankenstein and really committed to the bit of like the camera would follow him and he would just show the audience something that was completely stupid, like a gum under the seat, or like this is our fire extinguisher.
Was it the guy who normally was the Conan guy? They just put him in a Frankenstein costume.
I think so. Yeah.
Because I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure I remember that. I used to watch the hell out of Conan,
and he would always,
especially when he was the Late Late Show.
Oh yeah. It was a good bit. He would always try to not laugh, but maintain the Frankenstein so he'd be like laughing while doing that. So that was my first one. Next is Frankenstein in the Monster Squad, because I love that movie.
Okay. All right.
And he's, have you guys seen the Monster Squad?
Yes, I watched that for the first time last year.
Okay, all right. So I can say that he's a hero in this film. He saves the day after Dracula calls the little girl a bitch, which is a great movement in the film.
Wasn't that crazy? Also like a TV show too back in the, what was it, like the 70s, 80s?
I don't know if they were related. I think they just had the same name.
Because I know there was the Monster Squad TV show.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the Ghostbusters thing. There was the Ghostbusters TV show, and then the obviously much better '80s movie, and they had to like legally figure out a way to use the same title,
Hmm.
but they weren't related to each other.
I think the TV show still had like Frankenstein, Dracula. I don't remember who was all in it, but I believe, and I think it had a werewolf. I'm gonna hit the Google later real quick.
Well, I know for Jeremy, there's that documentary, The Werewolf got my nards or hit my nards. There's a really it's supposed to be a really good documentary on
Sweet.
I think I just saw it on, like, I was flipping through Tubi yesterday watching some stuff, and I think I saw that Tubi has it.
Oh, cool. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, it was 1976 NBC show that had 13 episodes.
Was it related to the movie, or does it say?
It looks a lot like the same kind of stuff.
Oh, all right. All right. So what's
There's a 30-minute TV show that when trouble arises, 3 monster wax figures come to life to battle evil.
Oh, all right. Sounds like a interesting show.
all
All
right,
right.
so what's your number 3?
Number 3 is the Lego minifig, simply entitled "The Monster" from 2011, which is pretty awesome recreation of Frankenstein's monster. It has some really adorable band-aids covering its head, and it looks pretty monstrous. So that's my pick. I have 2 runner-ups too, but I can save them for the end.
Okay. All right, Justin, what are your top 3?
All right. The number one I put down was Peter Boyle as the monster in Mel Brooks' Young Frankenstein.
Of course.
Yeah, knowing my love of Mel Brooks, that shouldn't really be a surprise.
Right.
I do have that autographed Young Frankenstein poster on my wall, so that's definitely going to be number 1 for me. Came out in 1974. I know you guys have seen that movie.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Favorite moment from that movie?
Either the what knocker scene after they got done rolling in the hay, or the putting on the Ritz.
Oh yeah. I love the I got the brain from Abby Normal. Abnormal.
Abby something.
Yeah.
Like, I know the whole putting on the Ritz scene was written by Gene Wilder.
Oh, really?
And Mel Brooks wanted to cut it until Gene Wilder fought for it. And he's like, okay, it's this. He's like, I just wanted to see how passionate you were about it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Moving down, I have Fred Gwynn's adaptation of Herman Munster from the Munsters, which ran from 1964 to 1966. They did 70 episodes in that 2-year run. And the only reason it got canceled was because it had a huge drop in the ratings, because the second season was when ABC premiered Batman. So it ran at the same time as Batman. So Batman killed the Munsters.
Okay.
And then the third one I put was the Frankenstein from Monsters in My Pocket, which was a 1992 Nintendo NES game where you would be Frankenstein, the Wolfman, or Dracula, because they teamed up to battle other little pint-sized monsters.
Nice.
Like goblins, and I don't know if you ever played it. You fight a monster in a freezer.
They played it all the time on Nick Arcade. It was always one of the ones that was available to do the Wizards Challenge with. And the kids sucked at it.
Oh, excellent game. Me and my sister played it all the time when we were kids. So it kind of holds a special spot.
That's cool.
And that also, the Monsters in My Pocket brand also had trading cards, comic books, toys, board games, a clothing line, kites, stickers. So that one's special. Then I've also got 3 honorable mentions on here for when we're done with Nicholas's.
All right.
Well, we're going to be done with mine real fast because my number 1 is Boris Karloff. I mean, there's a reason that he's become kind of the face of what Frankenstein is. My number 2 and my number 3 are Justin's number 1 and 2. Peter Boyle and Fred Gwynn are my 2 and 3.
Right on.
So
that's a good choice. I knew Young Frankenstein was definitely going to be one of the choices.
I should have. I think I even thought when I was writing it down that Justin will have this one on his list, but I just it's too good for me not to put it on my list.
Yeah.
It's just such a good movie.
Yeah.
Do you have honorable mentions on your list?
I do. I have Frankenberry.
Nice.
Okay.
And Phil Hartman on SNL did Frankenstein a number of times.
I do remember that.
Nice.
That's awesome. All right. I will say for runner-ups, Frankenstein Girls Will Seem Strangely Sexy by Mindless Self-Indulgence. The album cover has 3 cartoonish Frankenstein's monster-looking girls on it, so that counts.
Oh.
And last is Monster Dick by Sunday Jeff of Tell 'em Steve Dave. It's a rap about the Universal monsters. Favorite line.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like no one will ever get this reference at all unless you really list like Kevin Smith and Smodcast stuff. But best line in that rap is my dick ain't green and it don't got stitches. They call it monster because it's over 17 inches. So Justin, what are your favorite runner-ups?
Oh, I should have went before you. Should have ended on that note. Well, I put Lurch from the Addams Family.
Oh, nice.
Whether it's the show, the movie, the cartoon, he's always one of the top Frankenstein's monsters. Number 5, I put DC's Frankenstein because DC did a run with Frankenstein as well. It came out in 1948. So I think that's what Marvel ripping them off again.
Yeah.
Is that about right?
I mean, yeah, Marvel ripping off DC, DC ripping off Marvel. That's all they ever do.
Everyone ripping off Mary Shelley.
Poor Mary Shelley.
The favorite one from that I was kind of reading through, there's an alternate timeline of the Flashpoint event where Frankenstein was awakened during World War II and he attacks Nazi soldiers.
Oh, that's cool.
And I think I don't remember what league he's currently in with Justice League Dark, or he's in one of those kind of Justice League situations right now.
So you said that he did that during Flashpoint?
There's a Flashpoint, one of the Flashpoint events.
So clearly they stole that storyline from Marvel because he was fighting Nazis with the Howling Commandos like way earlier than that. Oh. So they're just stealing from each other on Frankenstein's monster.
They probably secretly work together.
I wouldn't be surprised, quite honestly.
All right, you're going to do this. We're going to do this. A couple of years, just all right. And then the final one I put on there was from the Coca-Cola's Monster of the Gridiron collector cards that came out in 1994. There's a John Elliott, and he's also known as Jumbo. And he was an offensive tackle for the New York Giants from 88 to 95, and then for the Jets from 96 to 2000.
Wow. Nice.
Monsters, I remember that. That was... Didn't they do that like a couple years in a row?
They did it 1 year.
Oh, okay.
It was only in 94, and they released, I don't remember how many is in the set, 30?
Was Randall Cunningham one of the ones?
Yeah, I think he was the Rocket. I'd have to look.
Okay.
I've got the whole collection, thanks to Jeremy.
Oh yeah.
And it's framed. I kind of framed them up, and now it's hanging on the wall in my hallway leading to my basement.
Cool.
Did you like originally have to send away for those like back in the day? Is that how you got them originally?
No, they would come in a little plastic sleeve, and they would be inside boxes of Coca-Cola, and I think inside the package of pizza.
Oh, wow.
So it was like Jack's Pizza or two. I think it was Jack's. Jack's and Coca-Cola did the promotion together.
Yeah, you'd get what, like 3 cards every box, or
It was just one, and there's just
one? Okay.
one card in a little sleeve. So you'd have to get the whole collection by just sheer luck.
Yeah. Every time you bought a box of Coke, you're like, please let this be a different one.
Right.
I remember that was back when like cereal boxes would do like their own like version of trading cards. So you'd be like, Dad, buy me this cereal, because like, and they would put like instead of getting a pack of like 10 to 12 cards or 15 cards, you'd get like a pack of 3.
Yeah, I think that was what Post branded a lot of that.
Yeah, Post did a lot of those.
Because then they also did like the player baseball mini bobbleheads and stuff like that, like Giambi and Griffey.
Yeah, I got a bunch of those.
Sosa.
I got a bunch of those in a box somewhere down in the basement.
That's sweet. They need to bring that back. More stuff inside of our products.
Yeah. I don't know
All
why
right.
they would ever stop. We get people like us now who had it when they were kids as adults. We'll buy it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, now that, well, I mean, some of us don't necessarily have expendable income, but that wouldn't stop me from trying.
Yeah. Oh, we don't have any cereal. I'm going to get this one instead of this because it comes with free shit.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
Like, what was I was watching 1941 yesterday. That really weird, like one of Steven Spielberg's worst films. And there was a Cracker Jack box, and they opened up the box, spilled out the prize. Like they opened up the prize, and it was actual, like it was like a little tiny compass. And I was like, oh, I remember back when Cracker Jack's prizes used to be something other than just a sticker or a QR code.
Like they were like real things.
Yeah, they were real. They were just, I mean, it would be something cheesy, like a little, like a plastic compass that barely works.
Yeah.
Like if you were to try to use it in the real world, you definitely would get lost. But
damn you, Cracker Jacks!
it was all the compasses that should have been in the stock on Ralphie's gun were just like wrapped in paper and thrown in the Cracker Jack box.
Nice.
All right. Well, I've got a little couple paragraphs here that I wrote just to kind of finish off our discussion here.
All right.
So, what is our fascination with the story? Why has it endured, making this monster one of the more iconic of the monsters? They've played him terrifying, the 1931 Boris Karloff or the 1994 De Niro, or they've played him humorous, Peter Boyle or Fred Gwynn, or the strangely bizarre Andy Warhol's Flesh for Frankenstein or Frankenhooker.
Why was that not on the list?
Well, I mean, I've never seen it, but I've seen the pictures. It's a 1990 horror movie called Frankenhooker. Yeah.
All right.
But either way, he has been used both effectively in horror and in kids' cartoons, but yet has never been given a name. Is it the hubris of man that believes that we can use science to conquer death, or just the fear of science that, if left unchecked, will go too far? Maybe a strange combination of both. There are tons of theories as to what this 18-year-old girl who wrote this book meant when she created her now iconic character. But basically on a bet in the year that was without a summer. Look that year up. There was a volcanic eruption that basically created a year where they never really had summer all year. It was just rainy and cold and dreary. Like it put the world into a severe, not necessarily drought, but like it killed crops because it was a terrible year for human history.
Wow.
But most of them all bring their belief system into what they think she meant by it. Whether it be some sort of sexual repression or fear of death, or it's the most every theory is you can tell is their own personal beliefs kind of getting into what they think she meant. Personally, I think much like Dracula or the Wolfman, he just captures that part of our imagination that likes to be scared. That small part of our brains that enjoy fear even just a little when we don't even realize that we are afraid. And I think that's why he works so well in comedy, that he can take that thing that scares us and make it humorous so that we can live with it. But for whatever reason, Frankenstein Monsters occupies that rare spot of where he is an icon among icons. He is probably on the Mount Rushmore of horror icons.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So that is Frankenstein's Monster.
Nice. Woo!
Well done.
Hell of a start.
There's I think Will Ferrell portrays him in Drunk History. If you watch that,
I've seen it. I didn't see that one, but
there's one where they do Frankenstein's Monster with Mary Shelley. And I believe it's Will Ferrell is the monster, and Seth Rogen might play Dr. Frankenstein.
that's funny. That's
'Cause,
a
yeah,
funny show.
They talk about the Year Without Summer. They kind of reference that in there.
Yeah, there's a Doctor Who episode where Doctor Who ends up at the because Mary Shelley married Percy Shelley.
Huh.
Mary Shelley's last name was not Shelley when she wrote the book; it was something else. But that's all that anyone refers to. And there was some other famous author. There was 3 or 4 of these people holed up in a mansion somewhere out in the countryside of England, and they like basically bet each other to like come up with the scariest of ghost stories,
Wow.
and that's what came from it. Like, I mean, I guess Mary Shelley's father was also like a pretty famous poet or philosopher or both. So like that she kind of maybe started ahead of the curve than most authors do, at least in that time period. Having I think even her mother, I mean, although her mother died shortly after giving birth to her, which is where a lot of people put a lot of the the fear of death or the whole death montage into the whole Frankenstein's monster thing. But but she was a famous person as well. So, there's a lineage there. So, I mean, maybe I was giving her too much credit or not enough credit. I don't know. I mean, it's still pretty fascinating to think that an 18-year-old in 1818, 18 or 1816 is when she started writing it, managed to write a book that has endured so well, 200 plus years later.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It's incredible. Truly.
All right. Well,
Good honor.
Yeah.
I don't really know if we have a good way of ending this episode because I don't know if our normal ending fits.
Well,
We'll have to have some kind of positive ending here.
Okay. Do we want to tease what's coming next week, or do we?
yeah. Why don't we do
All right.
that?
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is to remind you too of what we're actually talking about next week, isn't it?
Yeah, this is just for us.
Yeah, it's definitely for us.
Next week we are going to be treading lightly into the world of cults, and yeah, I don't know if we're gonna do a top 3 favorite cults, but
Top 3 most joinable.
3, all right, we'll have to work on what we'll do there, because I think if we have a top 3 favorite cult, that might get a little awkward.
What about favorite cult leaders?
All right, maybe
fascinating.
Top 3 fascinating, maybe, because
yeah, favorite. Okay, that's
favorite might be put us into some very sketchy, questionable territory.
Favorite joinable.
There's probably some pop culture cult things though that we could put on our list.
Right, some not actual cults, like ones from movies or TV show. Okay,
yeah,
all right, yeah, we'll figure it out. We have a week.
We always make it up as we go.
We must figure it out on the ending of this show.
All right. Well, hopefully everybody has been enjoying the 3 days so far, and we have a lot of good stuff coming.
What do we have tomorrow? Food review show number 1: Halloween cereals.
Okay,
so that was a good one.
That was a lot of fun. So we got some good stuff coming this month. We got a few more themed episodes. We got some movie reviews. We got some some food reviews. We got some game shows. Jamie and Chris will be joining us again for some arts and crafts again this year, or what are we?
Probably not. But we do have a
Okay.
fun barcode monster game that we did.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Jamie and Chris will be joining the festivities.
They will, yes, in some
Yes.
form, yes. And you have 3 more episodes of Horror Through the Decades left for people to look forward to
Okay.
at this point.
So hopefully you guys enjoyed Tourist Trap as much as I did.
Yeah.
So we have some interesting things coming up this month. So hopefully you'll join us for the rest of it. So pop culture roulette off.
Stay spooky.
Ooh.
Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and listen to an 80s Flick Flashback podcast once in a while, you could miss it. Do you love movies of a certain age? Do you miss the days of VHS tapes, VCRs, and the video rental stores? Does the thought of another 80s movie being remade seem inconceivable? My name is Tim Williams. I'm the creator and host of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. On each episode, I'm joined by guest co-hosts to discuss one of the many movies released in the 1980s. We share our first-time watch memories, our favorite scenes, and even learn some behind-the-scenes stories about the cast and crew along the way. New episodes are released every other Friday on your favorite podcasting platform. So make like a tree, get out of here, and go listen to an excellent episode of the 80s Flick Flashback podcast. The ad is over. Go home. Go.